Joshua, thanks for being here with us. It's a pleasure, Javid. Um,
Thank
let's
you for
talk a
having
little
me.
bit. It's a pleasure. And let's talk today a little bit about what nearshoring is, the USMCA agreement, and a great project that you have as a chairman of the Greater Nogales Santa Cruz County Port Authority. So, can you please give us a brief introduction so the
Yes,
audience can learn about you?
yes, of course. My name is Joshua Rubin. As you mentioned, Ricardo, I am the chairman of the Greater Nogales and Santa Cruz County Port Authority. I, as well as a on the executive board of directors of Index Nogales, which is the manufacturing association in Mexico. And what actually pays me, my actual job is I am the vice president of business development for Javid LLC, which is a shelter company that helps
Mm.
foreign manufacturers diversify their supply chains in Mexico.
Based on your experience, what have you learned about nearshoring and what it is?
So nearshoring's funny. I like to call them fad words. They're not they I mean they mean things, but they're more a word for the time that we're in right now. The word
Mm,
outsourcing has always existed. The word nearshoring has kind of always existed, but it's never been really used recently. It's became
mhm.
a word now used a lot more often after COVID. And
Oh,
the
yes.
push that President Trump did in his time of office of the China war. Um,
Yes.
so when he created this issue and started taxing all Chinese products to a 25% duty rate, given no matter really what it is, I mean it changes as the agreements go, but in
Mhm.
essence, what it is a flat 25% tax on anything that comes from China.
Okay.
That caused a new trend, which is what we call reshoring. Okay.
Ah,
And to get into the term nearshoring, I kind of need to talk about the other shorings in a sense.
yes,
So,
exactly.
first
That
of
that
all,
of course.
the first thing that we all know about, and it happened in about 95, 96, 1995, 1996, there was a very large push to go to China, go to Asia.
Mhm.
And it was the contract manufacturing. It's a lot cheaper. It was amazing. China did some
Mhm.
fantastic things for the U.S. manufacturing sector. However, it also hurt the U.S. manufacturing sector severely
How?
in the sense that since we're pulling jobs out and sending them to China, all these jobs that were in the US are
Uh-huh.
gone in a sense.
Oh, okay.
The other part to it is the issue that we come into when it comes to trade. Right now, every dollar, $1 that is traded between China and the United States, 4 cents, 4 cents, so 4% is of US origin product, meaning 4% of that dollar is what's being sent from the US to China to
Uh-huh.
manufacture and it comes back to the United States.
Okay.
Whereas Mexico is 40 cents of every dollar is from
Oh.
US origin. So, what does that mean? What's that mean is that China really hurt the US manufacturing sector. Why? Well, if it's only 4 cents, meaning that means think about any company, you're going to be reducing that company drastically because it's only 4% going to China. Whereas
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Mexico's 40%, being that it's
Uh-huh.
40%, that means you need a lot more work, a lot more jobs to be producing this raw material to send to Mexico. So the
Yes.
trade
Okay.
between Mexico and US is actually very beneficial for the US market as well and for the people
Of
working in
course.
Mexico. So part of what happened with Trump is he implemented a 25% duty. So that's outsourcing. That is what we call outsourcing. Is what happened in 1995 and 1996 of companies leaving our shore, and our shore
Mhm.
being from Alaska, all the shoreline, all the way down to Argentina would be considered the shore of our shore in a sense,
America
America in a
or
sense.
America, the continent.
Correct. And then
Okay.
outsourcing would be taking it out of your shore or offshore.
Mhm.
That's the other term
Mhm.
is linked with outsource is offshore. You're
Mm.
leaving your shore to go to another shore. So you're
Correct.
offshoring or outsourcing your product. That is
Okay.
what that is basically the movement of product from your current country and land to a completely different section of the world. So
Okay.
US, China. It's a ship that has to.
Yes.
Now, what happened during COVID is the term that started coming, which was called ally shoring, friend
Mm.
shoring, or reshoring. All these
Yes.
terms kind of came out during COVID. That's why I call it fad words. It's a word
Uh,
to explain what's going on in that moment in time, and then it's going to disappear eventually.
okay.
So reshoring, no one talks about it anymore. Ally shoring, no one talks about it anymore.
Nor
And
friendshoring.
friendshoring, no one talks about it anymore. Why? Because most of the companies that have been leaving China have already left. So they've already
Uh,
left. And they're either back in the United States or they found somewhere else in Asia or something. It's not 100% of a reshore. It's still there's still
okay.
some outsourced or offshored off the United
Offshore,
States.
offshore. Okay.
Yes. So the offshoring triggered the term reshoring, which was a
Yes.
reshoring of U.S. manufacturing or American manufacturing back to our continent of the United States.
Okay.
Where did most of those companies look for? They either looked at the U.S. because the U.S. they buy U.S. made or the programs that Trump put in, the programs that President Biden put in. Both of
Mm-hmm.
them put in programs to benefit manufacturing being created back in the United
The
States.
United States.
That's reshoring, returning back to
Like
our
TSMC.
yes. Like so, no. So that's a Taiwan semiconductor. That's actually their offshoring their products.
Oh, okay.
Taiwan
Okay.
is coming to the United States, is coming to Arizona, so that they're doing the opposite of what we used to do.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
we had reshoring. Reshoring is the term of returning back.
Ah, okay.
That
Okay.
word is gone now. That word doesn't exist anymore. No one uses it because it's already passed. That was a couple years ago. Now
Okay.
the term nearshoring is what everybody is talking about. It's nearshoring, nearshoring,
Yes.
nearshoring. What is nearshoring? Nearshoring is moving your supply chains or moving your manufacturing to a country that is similar in shores with you. It's near to
Mm,
them. That's Mexico. That's Canada. That could be Colombia. That could be Venezuela. It could be anywhere that's near our shore.
near your shore.
Um,
Okay.
and that brings in many benefits. We can go through the very main overarching benefits. Number
Okay.
one,
What are those?
you're in the same time zone.
Yeah,
So if
definitely.
I can, the worst thing you're going to be anywhere from 2 to 3 hour difference on time zones, given the time. If we're on
Mm-hmm.
daylight
Mm-hmm.
savings time or if we're not on daylight savings time. So
Mm-hmm.
right now, for example, we're 2 hours from New York,
Mm-hmm.
in Florida, meaning that the worst case scenario, I need to have a meeting at 8 o'clock my time and it's 10 o'clock in New York.
Correct.
That would be like first in the morning type of meetings. Whereas
Yes.
if you're dealing with Asia, or if you're Asia in general, it's like a 12 to 13 hour time
Yeah.
difference. Meaning you're trying to figure out that one little 30-minute window where you're still awake and they're just waking up and so you can have a conversation. And then that's why
Mm-hmm.
in China you have a lot of people that are calling you at 11 o'clock in the afternoon, but it's like
Mm.
one in the morning over there, just because
Yeah.
that's the only way they can communicate with it. So that
Of
adds
course.
issues there is that you
Yep.
can't communicate fluidly. I deal with Chinese companies all the time, and it literally we can only get an email out a day. I send an email out,
Wow.
I have to wait till the next day. They email me at night,
Correct.
and then it's going back and forth.
So
Whereas
the communication is very slow.
exactly. Whereas right now, the worst case scenario, I'm a 2 to 3 hour time difference with New York, Florida, anybody on the East Coast. That 2 to 3 hours isn't that bad to
It's
wait
not
for a
bad.
response in an email. So that's one benefit. Second benefit, any owner, CEO, president, vice president of operations, anybody that's responsible for their manufacturing can get to their facility if we're talking about Mexico within the same day. They more than
Mm-hmm.
likely can catch the earliest flight that they need to catch out of New York, Dallas, wherever it is, hop over to Mexico City. From Mexico City, go to Guadalajara, go to Monterrey, go to Hermosillo, and you at least can get to your facility that same day
Mm-hmm.
for a meeting
Yeah.
at like say 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But you can
Mm-hmm.
get there. Look at China. China, you're gonna have to fly all the way over there. Then you're gonna be jet lagged. Then you have to try dealing with it's the morning for me, but it's a nighttime here, and then get a
Mm-hmm.
have your meeting. And the culture is completely different in
Cultural
China.
differences, of
That's
course.
that's number three. Number three is the culture is completely different in Asia than it is in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Mexico has a very special culture. We're a very
Yeah.
I'm Hispanic. I'm not Mexican, but I am Hispanic, and our culture is very unique. Is we're very family. We're very close. We
Mm-hmm.
like to communicate. We like to be close with each other. I mean, in Mexico, you can't go anywhere without giving someone a hug or a kiss on the cheek, just because
Yeah.
it's just the way we are. The
Yeah.
Hispanic culture is a very touchy feely. We like to be close with people. Where the
Mhm.
Asian market's a little bit different.
Mhm.
Now, because there is so many Hispanics in the United States shares very similar cultures to Mexico. Now, we have some
Okay.
very distinct differences, but
Totally.
we have a lot of similarities in the way we interact. The United States, for example, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving
Mhm.
is a holiday of coming together
Correct.
and saying thanks to each other. That's what the Mexican culture is almost in general.
Daily.
I mean, think about it. It's about getting together as a family. Everyone's, oh, you're my amigo, you're my friend, you're my cousin, my cuñado, my compadre. Everybody has like a nickname because you're close.
Mhm. Correct.
So, and it's very similar in the US. So that would, I would say that would be number three of the main benefits of this near shore trend is you're sharing a lot of similarities with the United States. That's not
Okay.
even going into the cost benefits and the breakdowns and everything else that we can go into a lot more detail.
Mhm.
But to mention that is one of the reasons why having a trading partner that's right next to you really benefits you. Then
Okay.
we now add in USMCA.
Mhm.
So we explained offshore and outsourcing. We know that's
Correct.
extending it out of North America. Reshoring coming back, and now we're living in the nearshoring, saying, "Hey,
Correct.
manufacturers in the United States or in Canada, or I mean, even in Colombia or Brazil, you guys want to get closer to the U.S. market? Come to Mexico. Mexico
Mhm.
has lots of benefits. That's nearshoring. Now
Mhm.
that we're nearshoring, what benefits does nearshoring offer? Mexico, for example, which is the number one trading partner of the United States right now, and
Correct.
actually started in 20, 2020, first quarter of 2020 is when I think it was 2020 or 2019, US and Mexico became the first time number one trading partner of the United States. It was that
Okay.
quarter, and then it dropped down, and then it became China again for a
Okay.
period of time. But we're going 2 years in a row now that Mexico has become the number one trading partner of the United States, and our goal is to remain that. Why?
Okay.
We have
Yes.
USMCA, which has been one of the greatest agreements since created. I'm talking about NAFTA and USMCA. We have our
Uh-huh.
challenges with USMCA. We have our challenges with NAFTA.
Of course.
However, it has increased the relationship between the countries. We have seen better pushes. We have seen a lot of companies that are pulling out of Asia are saying, I want to go to Mexico because I want to reap the benefits of USMCA.
Mhm.
So we're seeing that's one of the greatest benefits is that you possibly could have a relationship with a country that you pay little to no duties on your transactions. Before you're paying 25% going to China, now you can possibly pay almost nothing, depending on the composition of your raw material and the countries of origin of your raw material. But that's going too
Mm.
much into the weeds and the details that we don't need to get into.
Okay. Okay.
So that's one of the economic benefits. Another economical benefit, Mexico's labor is a lot cheaper than the US labor.
Yeah.
Okay. Being roughly on the border region, you can hire an operator anywhere from $5 to maybe $7 an hour. There's nowhere in the United States that you can find someone for $5 an hour, fully
Yeah.
fringed, taxes, benefits, everything. You can't find that anywhere in the US. Not
Mhm.
even probably $7, $8. You can do that as a fully fringed number. So you can get very high level operators to engineers and things at lower salaries in the United States. Now, the difference though in Mexico is as you move up in positions, becoming say supervisors, managers, plant managers, general managers, those salaries of the general managers and the high ups are almost equal to the United States.
Okay.
Okay. So that's where you get your cost savings in your operators and in your line people, not
Mhm.
necessarily in your managers. However, the
Okay.
benefit is you only need one plant manager.
Yes.
You need
Okay.
150 operators. So
Correct.
all those operators lower salaries kind of justify the hub manager.
Yep.
The other benefit is that Mexico has worked very heavily in creating the workforce needed to advance the manufacturing sector in Mexico. Um, Go ahead. I think you have a question.
No, 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 no. I'm thinking about what you just said. Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, so Mexico has worked very heavily in advancing the education of the employees, of the workers, to produce higher level caliber employees that
Okay.
can
And
work
in
in
what,
facilities.
in which specific areas?
You can in almost anything. To
Okay.
before I answer your question, then give
Okay.
me about 30 seconds to explain to you the history
Yeah.
of the maquiladora. So
Okay.
in the early 60s, there was a program that was called the Bacero program, if you ever heard of it. The
Yeah.
Bacero program was a program that the US implemented that allowed Mexican nationals to cross into the United States, work in the farms for the season, and then come back to Mexico.
Mm.
And they would do this over and over and over and over again because it's the same issue that we have right now in the United States. We do not have enough workers that want to work in the farms.
Okay.
What 18-year-old kid says, I just graduated high school, I'm gonna go pick
Go to
strawberries?
the farm.
They
Yeah.
don't want to. Most kids want to become influencers or they want to get a job that they automatically start at the CEO of a company. I mean that's
Yeah.
what just new generations looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want to go to the farms. So back in those days, what was going on was World War One, World War Two, Korean
Mm.
War, Cold War. All these types of battles were going on. So there wasn't a lot of labor in the United States at those times. Or Vietnam,
Okay.
you had
Yeah.
Vietnam, Korea, you had all these things. So the labor was a lot lower because a lot of people were being drafted to go to wars, or
Yes.
wars were just ending, and a lot of people passed away, unfortunately. So the market in the United States wasn't able to produce the labor needed. So the U.S. said,
Oh, okay.
"Create the Bacero program." In the mid 60s, that program got canceled. We said, we don't need it anymore. We're done. What did that
Okay.
do? It left a lot of Mexican nationals along the border. Tijuana, Nogales, Juarez, and going all the way over to Reynosa.
Correct.
Lots of Mexican nationals on the border because the U.S. basically said, you're done. Get out of here. And they kicked them
Mm-hmm.
all out.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the resources to make it back to Oaxaca or Yucatan or wherever they're from. So they lived on the border.
Yeah.
So what happened? Mexico said, this is an issue. I have a lot of unemployment in my country. I need to create a program to benefit these individuals. So what they created was what is now called the Maquiladora or the EMEX program. What they basically said is, I want to create a program, US, bring, and I want you to listen to the word specifically, bring your manufacturing to Mexico.
Mm.
Not send your products and we'll build it for you. To bring your manufacturing to Mexico, hire the labor force, pay them fairly, and we will give you a benefit where you don't have to pay taxes on your imports and exports and your purchases. Why? Because you're going to bring in the pieces that make a calculator. You're going to hire my employees. You're going to produce and create the calculator, and then you're going to send it back to the United States. You're
Correct.
not going to sell it in Mexico. Being that you're not going to sell it in Mexico, we won't charge you taxes.
Mm.
Duties and things, but we're not going to charge you taxes, which is a huge
Mm.
benefit. Mexico's tax rate is 16% of that. So
Mm-hmm.
saying all your imports and all your exports and all your purchases that you do, if they qualify, you won't have to pay that 16% tax on anything. That's a huge cost savings.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're reaping the benefit of hiring labor in Mexico at a lower rate than what is in the US. So that's what created the Maquiladora program. Back then was simple packing or assembly. It was not this complex thing. As Mexico has morphed from the 60s to now the 20th, 21st century or 22nd century,
Yeah.
whatever you call it, Mexico has put a lot of effort in the educational system. What type of
Yep.
education? The maquiladora industry has also gone to the universities and said, listen, I know that you guys were really good at just giving me operators that doesn't know how to do anything. And it's just, hey, put this piece here, press the two buttons, and it goes. We
Mm-hmm.
want now someone to design my products for me, redesign
Wow.
my products. I need engineers now. So what we started doing and what Mexico,
Creative people.
say it again.
Creative people.
Correct. Yes, we want
Okay.
critical thinking. We want more engineers, more technical skills. So as the maquiladora industry started going to the universities, Mexico started helping the universities also by providing machines and equipment and different types of resources so that we
Yes.
start producing engineers. They also started opening up different criterias, computer science, engineering skills, technical skills, business administration, all these skill sets that you might have had the benefit of taking when you were living in Mexico and all
Yeah.
the employees that are there now that weren't there back in the 60s, in those times. So that's what Mexico's done to say, you know what? Company ABC, bring your products, bring your machines over here, and guess what? You want to make them better? We have the people here to make them better for you, and they're going to be cheaper than what you're paying your designers in the United States.
Of
Now,
course.
well, how does this work? Now, I mean, hearing it that way sounds very negative for the US. However,
Of course.
because of this 40% difference or this 36% difference between China and Mexico trading with them because of the
Okay.
40 cents,
Yeah.
US has now said, you know what? Making this calculator cost me $10. I sell it for 12. I don't have much margins on it.
Hmm.
However, I have this scientific calculator that I make a lot of money. I'm gonna send this to Mexico and I'm gonna work on the one that makes this that has bigger margins. So you start sending
Uh,
down products that maybe have small margins, but because of Mexico, you can sell it for the same price, but you're making more money off of it now.
you have more margin there.
Correct.
So
I mean, at
instead
the
of
end of the
just
day,
two
this is what
bucks, you
global
have six
economics is.
bucks.
Exactly. This
Of
is
course.
global economics at a reality of what it is.
Of
And then
course.
what happens is those US companies say, you know what, I'm not going to eliminate my staff. I'm going to now, my current staff, I'm going to readjust them to start building the more expensive product now. I want you guys to
Uh,
focus there. So you might see a small decrease in US companies' labor, but you don't see the same decrease as sending it to China. China was a huge cut. Hey, we're sending
yes.
all you guys are going to be fired. Now most of the manufacturers on the US side are saying, no, 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 I want to send my low runners or my high runners that don't make me a lot of money. I'm going to send that to Mexico, and we're going to start focusing on redesigning and remanufacturing better products to make version 2.0, or hey, this is my calculator. It cost me this is the old version, but you know what? We're going to start focusing on version number 2, and we're going to
Okay.
send once that's complete, we'll send that to Mexico and start working on version number 3.
And because of the USMCA agreement, the United States can be sure and safe that their IP is going to be protected.
So one of the biggest things on IP protection laws is that China really has none. Anything you send
Hmm.
out to China, if you are the proprietary of that information, more than likely they'll eventually start stealing it. And if it's a
Yep.
very, very wealthy and productive product, well, they're going to
Yeah.
infiltrate the market and you're done.
Yep.
Mexico has very strong international IP laws that do not allow for the stealing of foreign information. So they respect laws. They respect patents from other
Mm-hmm.
countries, as well as Mexico is one of the countries with the most trading agreements across the world. I believe they have
Oh,
something like either 18 to 26 free trade agreements other than the USMCA. So that also
okay.
gives manufacturers a good benefit, saying if I go to Mexico and I want to import from Italy, well, I can send it from Italy straight to Mexico and I can reap that tax benefit. Now, this is where USMCA gets a little bit more technical, which we're not going to get into the weeds in it. But when that
Okay.
product goes into the United States, then you have to look at what duty rate, what country of origin it is. And more than likely, it will qualify for USMCA. But if it doesn't, then you just pay the duty rate that is needed.
Okay.
But you defer that duty rate to a later time and date where it makes more sense.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that would be the way I would explain the benefits is you have labor reduction in cost. You are sharing a similar culture. You have free trade agreements with Mexico. You're in the same time zones. You can arrive to your facility at the same time. The only other benefit would be is the amount of logistical cost that you cut going from China, putting it on a boat.
Of
Say you're in New
course.
York. You're in New York and you want to get your product from
Yep.
China to New York. You either gonna have to go all the way down to the Panama Canal and come back up, or you go to
Hmm.
Long Beach and you truck it from Long Beach all the way to New York. That's a lot
Yep.
of logistical cost. However,
Yep.
going from El Paso, Nogales, Tijuana to New York, just that's a lot cheaper
Hmm.
because you got the whole boat. You don't have to worry about it.
Yep. Of course.
And then the same thing is a lot of people worry, hey, the market of China is such an economic because the raw material is so cheap. Well, now China is moving to Mexico. So we're also seeing
Hmm.
that now China is offshoring their product to come to Mexico to be in their market with the United States to try reaping the benefit of the USMCA and provide the US market with what they need. So we're
Okay.
also forcing China, hey, it's you if you want to be with us, you need to come over here for the
Okay.
cost savings.
Yes. And what would be for example, comparing, well, nearshoring and offshore practices, is there any risk or danger other than the IP protection that can happen because you're offshoring your manufacturing your product to another country? What are the risks there?
I would have to go back and say again, we all cannot forget 2020, March 2020 in specific.
March.
March
Yeah.
2020 was when the world shut down.
Yep.
What happened in March 2020? We all lived it. We all saw the toilet paper was you couldn't find toilet paper inside your manufacturer or inside your grocery stores. There were certain commodities that you would want to buy that you couldn't buy anymore. So we saw this. What this was a global shutdown for the manufacturing industry, which disrupted everything. Why do I say everything? Is, for example, Nogales, just talking locally here, Nogales used to have anywhere from 5 to 6 available buildings at any moment in time so that we can
Hmm.
show prospect clients where they were. There was
Okay.
absolutely nothing. Buildings
Wow.
were being built and rented right away
Yep.
by existing manufacturers, not even by new businesses. This is existing manufacturers. Why were
Uh-huh.
they doing that? Because what they saw was their lead times for getting raw material used to be anywhere for a week to 2 weeks, jumped to 3 to 4 months. Being that they had to do that, now they're saying, well, if this is the lead time, I need you to send me 6 months worth of raw material. Well, where are you going to put it at? Well, I guess I'm going to have to rent buildings.
Uh,
So one constraint is we all live through this global economic situation, but let's dig into it a little bit more. What are the major risks to having your manufacturing spread out, say across the world, the way it was, or no, not even across the world, in Asia, because that's where the main issue was in Asia.
mhm.
Shipping containers went from $5,000 from China to Long Beach to $25,000 for the same truck, for the same container, shot up that much. That same container before costed you maybe $3,000 or $4,000 to go from Long Beach to New York. That went up to $10,000 to $15,000. So you saw the cost of logistics go up like crazy because the demand was so high in raw material because
Uh-huh.
everybody was shutting down. Everyone's saying, I'll pay whatever I need to pay, just get it to me. And they got it to them because they needed to produce for the product. So there was a huge delay. Now let me add the other thing that happened in 2020 or 2021 that most people kind of forget to, but we're dealing with again right now, the Suez Canal. What happened in the Suez Canal? You had one ship make a turn that they shouldn't have turned and block the Suez Canal. I think it was for about 5 or 6 days. And what did that cause? That caused trillions of dollars of lost money in trade because of that backlog. That just that little canal, which we're dealing with
Yep.
again
Yep.
right now with everything that's going on with the pirates in that same area, is causing the same delay and the same issues. So we're seeing backlog. That's the problem with global trade that we're seeing, which is good. I mean, trade is very good. Still having trade in China is good because you maintain good relationships. Having good
Of
trade
course.
in different parts of the world is good because it maintains good relationships. However, for a company that wants to secure their operation, having it a little bit closer is better. So one of so that would be the risk that I can tell you. The main risk in offshoring is you're relying on the logistical world and the the temperatures in the water of all those other countries to be able to be successful in your business. Whereas if it's closer to home, you have more of a control over what's going on. I mean, Mexico suffered a lot during COVID, but we were up in manufacturing within 30, 40 days. Whereas Asia kept shutting down, opening up, shutting down, opening up, shutting down,
Yep.
opening up. So we were able to operate better. I mean, I had my clients up and running. I mean, some of my clients were up and running in about a week from the shutdown. Other ones took about 40 days, but they
Wow.
were up and running. Whereas other companies had to close or shut down or had to pull out of Asia completely because they had to. So that
And
would be one of the security concerns. I would say would be the cost and logistics. That
okay.
that you don't have a decision. You're stuck to whatever happens.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, this year 2024 is going to be an interesting year because of election happening in the USA and Mexico. But
Correct.
specifically in the USA, based on which president wins the election, would the new president affect in some way the USMCA agreement that we currently have between the United States, Mexico, and Canada?
Depends on who the candidate is. If it's President Biden and he's running again and he stays in, I don't see any change. What we lived through the last 4 years, we're going to get another 4 years of that. Is in my opinion because that's what he's done. If we get President Trump to be reelected, I don't see anything going on with USMCA because he's the one that made the agreement. So he shouldn't come back and want to change.
Yes.
Now,
Okay.
what other policies he might implement, I don't know, and what drastic. The only unfortunate piece with President Trump is his mouth and the things that he says. He doesn't necessarily act on them because he's a businessman. He knows how to threaten and how to negotiate, and that's his way of negotiating. But what he says really affects trade and really affects businesses. If you remember, and I think it was 2019, he was threatening Mexico with a 25% duty as well, or 5% duty that would get up to 25% duty if they didn't do their processes on controlling the migration and controlling the drugs entering the United States. Well, that just saying it put ripple effects in the industry in Mexico. Like, well, what's that mean for us? Oh man, that mean we're going to go up? What about USMCA and NAFTA? I thought we were good.
Okay.
So it all depends on who's in president. I don't see that Trump, if he becomes president, or sorry, President Trump, if he became president again, that it would put a drastic hurt on the nearshoring trend. I don't see it. However, it's just his rhetoric could make people uneasy for a short period of time.
And also this slogan of making America great again. Well, it involves the whole continent, right? I mean, of course, homeland will go first, but by reshoring or bringing or by starting to nearshore with Mexico, it will make America more stronger, right?
That is the hope. That is the understanding of what "Make America Great Again" is. We understand that President Trump focus is mainly helping the United States of America and making the United States of America great again. However, with his presidency and the USMCA and those relationships, I mean, we're seeing a united front between the three countries. We're seeing now with the new USMCA, the U.S. is able to go into Mexico and make sure the companies are doing the correct on labor for the employees, as well as Mexico and Canada can do the same thing to the United States and say, hey, you're not treating your employees correctly. So we're seeing this shift in relationship with the three countries that President Trump kind of spearheaded in a sense because he pushed for this USMCA. So we're seeing this kind of adjustment of, you know what, countries, we're not just three separate countries anymore. We're kind of uniting in a sense that we're all going to be making sure that everyone is doing everything correctly and treating people correctly, or treating employees, treating trade equally. Maybe there's different salaries in different countries, but everybody's going to be treated fairly. And that was one of the things that came out of the USMCA agreement. And I would have to say that with his term, Make America Great, it's almost looking like Make North America Great again.
North America great again. Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, before changing subjects to what you're doing with Port Authority, is there something else that it's important for you that you think that we should mention about this subject?
The biggest thing is Mexico's open for business. Mexico is ready to bring in your business. Mexico is changing. It's changing and changing drastically. Mexico right now is considered a third world country. It is. It's doing every effort it can to become a first world country, which we have to applaud. That I mean, it's always great to see countries become more successful. But it's the manufacturing world is changing a little bit more now because we're having so many engineers and technical people. For example, like what you do, we're seeing a lot more. The Silicon Valley is no longer in San Francisco area. Silicon Valley is trying to shift south into Mexico, and we're seeing it in Tijuana. We're seeing it in Hermosillo. We're seeing it in Guadalajara. We're seeing this rise of new talent that Mexico can provide the world, but specifically the North American market, by having back office people. What we're seeing is, like we mentioned earlier in the call, this new generation doesn't really care about starting off at the bottom as a janitor or work their way up to becoming CEO of the company, like your father, like my father, and like our grandparents past. They all started off sometimes at the very bottom and worked their way up, hustled as hard as they can, and then became very high up position people. This generation is a little bit differently. Which there's nothing wrong with it. Every generation we deal with whatever the new changes are and we work with them. But Mexico's generations are also changing that way too. They're saying, hey, I don't want to be an operator anymore. I want to learn coding. I want to learn engineering. I want to learn these high skills. So what's that changing? The manufacturing world is changing slightly to, hey, robotics. Hey, advanced manufacturing. massive
Mm,
cranes, massive
mhm.
manufacturing opportunities, molding machines, die casting operations. You have your advanced microchips, semiconductors. You're seeing this huge
Yes.
uptick in manufacturing that Mexico's never had, and they're learning it and they're processing it, and Mexico's producing the workforce for it. So the
Yep.
opportunity
Yep.
for a manufacturer to say, I want to go to Mexico and I want to, let's say, remodel the way I build my products to a more efficient method, Mexico can produce it. And the last thing that I'll add on manufacturing in Mexico, which is really funny, I'm not talking too much about what I do as a company, but every time I get new clients that come into my company, I hire all the employees for them and I handle all the administration for them. They take care of the manufacturing piece. However, every single time I talk to them during the startup process, I say, just wait. When you come to Mexico, within a year, you're going to be asking us to send over the engineers that I hired for you to go to your offices in the US and implement what they're doing in Mexico, because you're going to say, how are they doing that? And every single time,
Mm,
I can tell you 95% of the time, my
mhm.
clients say, there's no way. I already have done everything I can possibly do. This is the best way to manufacture it. And then every single time I get the phone call, hey, Josh, can you send over those engineers, please? Because I don't know what they did, but man, they're producing the product so much faster, so much easier, so much cleaner. I need that over here, and I need them to implement those processes over here. It happens almost every time. What is that showing you? The labor levels in Mexico are of that of the US, if not above the US. And the only way I can attest to it is in Mexico, there's 6,400 maquiladoras right now operating that have EMIX permits. We employ around 3.2 million people in Mexico as a whole. Sonora's 350 maquiladoras that we represent of the 6,400, and we're about 120,000 employees. Oh no, sorry, yeah, like 100, like 100,000 employees. Nogales alone represents about 50,000 of those 100. And we're 100 maquilas out of the 350. So Nogales is a very, very important focal point for the maquiladora industry in Sonora. But as a whole, as you can see, 3.2 million people, that's a lot of people working in our industry. That's not
It
including
is a lot.
Yep, that's not including logistics. That's not including customs brokers. That's not including our vendors that come and supply us. Our industry is one of the largest industries in Mexico. We represent a good portion of the GDP of Mexico. So what that attests to why so many people are going is because I can go work for BE Aerospace, or I can go work for Masterlock, or I can go work for Kimberly Clark within my career field. And guess what? Those are very high up companies that are investing money into their facilities to better their manufacturing processes. So if I was a junior engineer and I got put into BE Aerospace, an aerospace company, I'm gonna learn what they did. Well, I'm an engineer. I know how to do CNC operations. You know what? Masterlock's offering me a job. Oh, I'm going to go to Masterlock. I'm going to take what I learned from BE and now I'm going to learn Masterlock. Now I'm going to, hey, Kimberly Clark called me. Now I'm going to go with these two backpacks that I have of everything I've learned successfully. Now I'm going to go to Kimberly Clark. And then as you move up in the positions, now you become the person that when a new client comes, says, hey, I already know how to produce this. You can't produce it any better. They can say, well, when I was in BE, I remember we had a one-piece flow manufacturing setup. Then I went to Masterlock, and when I was at Masterlock, we set it up a lean Six Sigma manufacturing process. Then I went to Kimberly Clark, and I learned about XYZ. Well, and then you go to that facility, you're like, you haven't implemented one-piece flow. You haven't implemented lean Six Sigma. You haven't implemented this. Hey, can I implement this stuff in your facility? It probably go a lot better, and you start implementing it. But it's because you've learned from so many people,
Of
and the
course.
sharing, not sharing of information. It's not
It's not the information, it's
proprietary
sharing the
information.
skill set.
The skill set, exactly. So that's what you see the benefits of Mexico with having so many 100 manufacturers just in the city of Nogales that you can jump and you're jumping around. Now, it's not that people are, I'm going to spend a year here and jump over here and they have bad seniority levels. It's not that. It's that the people that work in the industry live in the industry. They've worked here for 15, 20,
Okay.
30 years.
Yep.
Maybe there was a downsizing at one of the facilities and they had to get cut, but they found another job at somewhere else and they moved them up. So it's just the seniority isn't that bad. It's not that people are quitting every year just to learn what they want. It's just the way the flow works, being that they spend so much time in the industry, maybe working in different facilities 5, 10, 15 years at a time. Well, they come with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and it's just not the time that they were there. They're dealing with engineers that came from other facilities also. And you basically are creating a, I don't want to call it this way, but a melting pot. In every maquiladora, we have like a melting pot of people with so much experience, and everybody learns from each other, which helps them when they go to your facility produce something so much better.
Yeah, so you get highly skilled people because they have a lot of experience by working in different roles throughout their careers. So that's when they hire you or your company and your services, and you tell them, hey, in 1 year you're gonna want to bring into your office to tell you how they can do it better in the United States. Okay, cool.
Exactly. And it's fascinating because it almost, like I said, it almost happens every single time, and it's, for me, it's laughable. I tell them and they give me the same answer, and I just laugh and I say, you just wait.
Wait for it.
Yep. And I have a manufacturing plant right here in the back of my office right now that was exactly what he told me. And literally within a month, he was calling me saying, can you send the plant manager over here, please? I don't know what he did, but they have a camera, they're looking. He goes, he set up the manufacturing plant process completely different than the way I have it. And you guys are producing more than I am with 6 people when I have 15 people over here. Can you bring them over here? And sure.
Wow.
He went over there, he set it up, and now they're both running at the same speed, and he's beyond grateful for it. So that would be, I think, the last piece that I would like to mention on the manufacturing piece, because I'm going to go into details about trade and everything on the next questions that we go to. That also
sure.
On manufacturing.
So, based on your role as the chairman at the Greater Nogales and Santa Cruz County Port Authority.
Yes, sir.
What's also going on out there?
Port Authority.
Also known as just the Port Authority.
Well, there's 3 port authorities, just to be clear. There's Douglas, there's San Luis, and Nogales, and the Greater Santa Cruz County. So yeah, all 3 of us, but everyone knows us as the port authorities.
Okay. Got it. So I'm just going to read the mission. So that your mission is to strengthen the regional economy, to improve international trade and sport tourism and community development by making international ports of entry and surrounding areas the most efficient and effective for generations to come.
Yes, sir.
So what about
that mean? What's that mean? Yes, basically. That's the question. So let me go into what is the Port Authority. The Port Authority is an organization that was established about 19 years ago, out of the frustration that all of us Americans and any citizen in any country go through. And what frustration is that? Talking the United States, it's frustrating to hear Washington, D.C. tell us in Nogales what we need without coming to Nogales. So, and like I said, it's the frustration that we all have as citizens in our own respective countries. You have the capital of the country, or the capital of your state, to even say. Let's bring this way down into Arizona. You have the governor of Arizona who doesn't live on the border. She lives in a border state, doesn't live on the border. She visits the border maybe 3 to 4 times. I think our governor of Arizona, since she's taken office, has visited the border 23 times for border security issues, for trade, for many different things. 23 times versus 365 days a year is a lot different. There's drastic differences in there. You're not going to see and live what we live on the border. So it's frustrating to hear Phoenix tell us, Santa Cruz County, what we need in our community to better our community. It's kind of like, well, you don't live here, so you really don't know what we need. Cool, send us money to redo that road, but what we really need is money to build bridges over the trains. Or what we really need is a massive flyover to get trucks onto the highway faster, because it's a security risk for children. It's a supply chain issue if we have delayed, because at the end of the day, business, time is money in business. If it takes you 1 minute or if it takes you an hour, there's a cost for that difference in time. So these things that we started saying is, okay, Phoenix, stop telling us that we need to repave our streets. We know what we need. So the Port Authority was created out of the frustration of politicians telling us what we needed. And we said, we're done, no more. So the county and the city came together. We created a private and public organization. So our organization is represented by the Fresh Produce Association of Americas, just because we import probably about 60 to 70% of all the fresh produce that enters the country enters through Nogales. The maquila industry, so Index, the U.S. Customs House Brokers Association. So everybody that deals with trade internationally has to have a broker that is responsible for you with CBP. So they're part of it. Nogales Community Development, which is an organization that helps the community here. They either help them with tax reliefs, they've helped them with migrants, they've helped them acquire grants and small business loans. That's what this organization does. That's why they're part of us. The Santa Cruz County Mining Cluster. So there's a huge mine that's being opened up that's going to be producing manganese, lead, zinc out of the Patagonia Mountains. And those minerals that they're pulling out, first of all, it's the largest manganese deposit in the world is located in the United States. Right now, we buy about 90 to 95% of all our manganese, we get it from China. So that's a huge national security risk. So, two of the minerals that we'll be pulling out of Patagonia will be minerals that are currently on the critical mineral list of the United States, meaning that it's not being sourced from North America anywhere. It's coming from overseas.
And Patagonia, you mean Argentina or
Patagonia, what? Arizona, Santa Cruz County.
Okay.
10 minutes from where I am right now.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
So it's a very large benefit to the United States. It's like I said, it's on the natural minerals critical mineral list of the United States government. So it's actually minerals that are of interest to national security. So that's how important this mine could be. So they're part of our board because they're also responsible for international trade. They're going to be sending some material to Guaymas. They're going to be sending some to Canada, to Mexico to do smelting operations because the U.S. doesn't have any smelting operations. So there's certain things that the mining cluster is a benefit to the Port Authority, and that's why they're on here with us, as well as the Nogales Economic Development Foundation. The Nogales Economic Development Foundation is the party responsible for the free trade zone in Santa Cruz County. So all of Santa Cruz County is considered a free trade zone. The Nogales Economic Development Foundation is the one that issues those free trade zones because we've learned and we processed it. I also sit on the board of that organization, and then we grant those. Those are the private sectors that are part of the Port Authority. The other two that are public, we have the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors. They're part of our organization, as well as the city of Nogales. So those are all our voting members. And then we have 3 ex officio members, which they're board members, but they don't have the power to vote. We have the Nogales Santa Cruz County Chamber of Commerce. They're on our board as well. We have the Tucson Electric Power, TEP, or Unisource, our electrical companies, because they're a massive partner in any projects that we do. Remodeling the Mariposa Port of Entry, you need power. The SR 189, the big flyover did, we needed power. Any project that is going on here, building buildings, anything for economic development, you need power. So TEP is very important to us to be part of our board. And then the newest member that we have is the First Interstate Bank. We wanted to bring in the banking industry into our organization, plus for the same reason as TEP is a lot of the projects that we need require money. And if you need money, who better than the banking industry to help you and point you to the right direction of where to go and offer the benefits to international trade by providing offices and opportunities for foreigners or current local people to pull out small business loans and be able to invest into our country. So that is the list of our memberships. What the Port Authority's main focus is like you read in the mission. It's boosting our community and boosting international trade through different methods. We have different priorities and different objectives of what we try to cover. One of the biggest things is promoting the Arizona-Mexico corridor. We want to promote that Arizona and Mexico have this amazing relationship and this amazing corridor of trade that we can have. So we promote that. One of the newest things that we did, being that we're such a large port of entry in the country, we represent out of the roughly $600 to $700 billion of trade between the two countries, we represent 30 billion just in Nogales. And then the other ports represent another amount, but we represent 30 billion. 5 billion is produce industry, roughly 25 billion is maquiladoras. Okay, so
Wow.
represent a lot. We're crossing right now roughly 2,000 trucks a day through Nogales. 1/3 of those are going to be the maquiladora industry, and then the rest of it is produce. Unfortunately, this calculator costs more than a box of grapes at times. So that's why the value of maquilas is so much more expensive than, or so much higher than produce. A box of grapes might go for anywhere for $9 to $20, depending on the season, the time, and whatever else is going on. But let's just go with the lower number, it's $9. Whereas some of the manufacture for a box of grapes.
Yep.
One calculator might cost me $15, and I'm going to put 50 of them in a box. Well, that box costs a lot more than a box of grapes.
Okay.
So that's why the difference is there. However, they have to cross a lot more shipments to get to that 5 billion, where we don't have to cross that much to get to 5 billion. 5 billion. So that's the industries, and that's what we're promoting as the Port Authority, is how do we bolster that trade to get it higher by doing projects like SR 189, which is which turned our community into what we feel is a big city now, because we have a flyover of a freeway. Before we only had exits, but now we feel like, hey, we're coming in. Hey, we're at Tucson, we're at Phoenix finally. We have a flyover, which the whole purpose of it, and the projects I'm mentioning are projects that the Port Authority spearheaded. We're the ones, for example, SR 189. We went to Wilcox, we went to Kingman, we went to the Apache reservations, we went to Yuma, we went everywhere in Arizona to ask them allow our project to be number one above your project, and here's why. And we gave them the explanations. The reason why we wanted SR 189 was from Mariposa Port of Entry, which is our commercial port of entry, to Ruby Road, which is about maybe 6-7 miles, could take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to get there with traffic and lights and everything. Our goal was to reduce that by roughly anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but when I already mentioned it, time is money. 1 minute could cost $10, and if you do that 5, now you're talking about $50. Well, that's a huge issue. However, so that was our goal, was to save just a few minutes in trade. Well, we ended up saving over 10 minutes to get on the freeway, because now all the trucks get out of the port of entry. They go around a roundabout, so there's no more light there. Then they go down. There's no light at the next intersection, which they used to have. That light's gone also, and they go straight onto the freeway. So we got so much time off, and now businesses are saving money. And
do you have any? Sorry for interrupting. Do you have like an estimate of how much money companies are saving for those 10 minutes?
No, because it's very different. Because the reason why, we can put an estimate to it. I wouldn't doubt that it's in the millions. And the reason why is a box of grapes costs one cost, a box of tomatoes costs another one, manufacturing costs a different. All of these are getting on there. But we can estimate probably anywhere, there's probably a couple $1 million in savings now just for a few minutes of savings. So that's the benefits. That's one of the biggest projects that we spearheaded. Now, our first project that created the Port Authority 19 years ago was Mariposa Port of Entry. I don't know if you remember how it was about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I don't, because I was a lot younger. But it was a nightmare to go there. It was a port of entry that was able to produce, that was able to process, I believe, 400 to 500 trucks a day, and we were crossing over 1,000 at that port of entry. So it was severely outdated. Now then the Port Authority started hearing from the state and the Washington, D.C. what they wanted to do at our port. And we said, and that's where the frustration started, saying, no. We're the users of this port of entry. We're the customers. Let me tell you what we need. And so we started going. So then the Port Authority was formed with the original founders, going to Washington, D.C., going with our mayors, going with our senators, saying, guys, this is what we need. We need a port of entry to be able to cross 4,000 trucks a day. Well, you're only at 1,000. Yes. And that's the reason why we're here, because we see our industry growing to a point where we're going to be 4,000 is not going to be enough anymore. We're going to be needing more.
And it's also going to benefit the United States.
Exactly. But at that time, Congress, the Senate, the State Department, they're just going to go and do whatever they wanted to do and say, all right, hey, they're at 1,000 right now. We're going to build a port, so it's at 2,000. And we're like, no, that can't work. So we ended up forming a really good relationship with CBP, and CBP would let us know the things that they need, whether it be staffing, whether it be what they needed for their models. And us, because we're private citizens, I can call my congressman and tell him whatever I want to tell him. So we would go to Washington, D.C. countless times, and we ended up creating a port of entry designed the way we wanted it. And then since we saw the success of that, we said, you know what? Now we have SR 189. Let's build it the way we need it. Because why? The industry is who's going to be using the highway. Not you, senator, not you, congressman. You'll use it 23 times in a year at the most. We use it every single day. Let us tell you what we need. And that's how this dialogue started coming. That's how the relationship building started happening with the Greater Nogales Santa Cruz County Port Authority, was advocating the benefits of our community to the government and not the government coming and talking to us. So these are the things. For example, yesterday we had the governor in Nogales, and it was my job as chairman, which I just took over Wednesday, 2 days ago. Thank you. My job was to tell her, these are our concerns. These are the things we're struggling with. We need better staffing at our ports of entry. We need to update the staffing model for CBP. That's one of my priorities. That has nothing to do with trade or directly, but if I have more CBP officers, my trucks and my cars start flowing faster. Who does that benefit? It doesn't just benefit Nogales or the county. It benefits all of Arizona. There was a study done and I know we're going way over, but you can edit everything you don't want.
Don't worry about it.
So there was a study done in about 2017, 2018 by the U of A that stated roughly $9 million a day is what the Mexican nationals spend in Arizona. $9 million in one day.
$1 million a day, but by just going there to retail stores, eating, restaurants or whatever.
Gasoline, going to Tucson to go to the malls, to the movie theaters, grocery stores, just using our highways to go to Disneyland, just to go to Universal Studios, to go wherever. Just our corridor in Arizona, it was $9 million a day. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago, or like 6, 7 years ago. Today, that number is definitely well over $10 million a day is what the Mexican nationals do. However, why is that so important? Why is that number so important? Because anything that happens at the port of entry affects what happens in the state of Arizona, the revenues that we get from the Mexican nationals. Everything that happened, the Port Authority's job, we are not focused on immigration. That is not our area. That's not one of our priorities. And that's not what we push. We recently have been pushing a lot on immigration because of the shutdown of Lukeville that took place last year. It's open now, but that shutdown forced us as an organization to say, you cannot be shutting down international ports of entry for migration. We are legal travelers. We have legal trade. It is legal. And you're hurting our industry to go take care of illegal travel, illegal trade, and illegal migration. So our whole thing is the removing of CBP officers from a port of entry to go locate them with Border Patrol. For us, in our mind, as an organization, makes absolutely no sense. Why? Of course. The U.S. government should have enough officers and agents to process what they need to process. Why don't they? Because the staffing model isn't updated to reflect 2024. We're using a staffing model from many years ago that does not really constitute what's going on in today's world.
And other than this project to promote the Arizona-Mexico corridor trade, what other project is there that it's important for you on your table?
So I have my priorities here, just so you guys are all aware. I just became chairman, so I don't have these memorized 100%. But one of our main ones, it also goes with trade, is Querobabi. A lot of people don't know what Querobabi is. Querobabi is a military checkpoint that has been established for many years. in between Hermosillo and Nogales. There's a military checkpoint in that area. That checkpoint, they review every car and every truck that comes. That line, you might have seen it in your trips from Hermosillo to Nogales, can go back 10 to 15 hours of a line. There's no bathrooms, there's no food, there's nothing for the truckers that are there. And think about it. We mentioned how many trucks are crossing in Nogales a day? Around 2,000. 1,300 of that is produce. Guess what? Nogales does not produce really any produce that crosses the United States. Most of the produce comes from Querobabi and back. Hermosillo, Obregón, Culiacán, and keep going all the way down to Oaxaca. We're getting fresh produce that comes from Oaxaca all the way up. Well, what happens to grapes? Grapes must be maintained at 1 degree Fahrenheit, roughly anywhere in that. Almost no, sorry, not 1 degree. I was saying it in Celsius. It's around 33 to 34 degrees. Grapes must be maintained just before freezing. That way they remain fresh and everything for the U.S. consumer. What happens when you have a refrigerated truck parked for 10 to 15 hours with grapes that need to be maintained? Well, you're risking the opportunity that those commodities are going to perish. And then when it gets to the U.S. market, you have to throw it all away. So part of our focus with Querobabi, for example, is either eliminate it or streamline it. Make it quick. Make it fast. Make it so that products don't get damaged in the process. So that's one of our pushes is Querobabi. Another one would be the modernization of the corridor of Mariposa Port of Entry, which is Mexico 15, which is the fiscal corridor. Modernize it, add more technology to it, make it more secure, streamline that process. Same thing as Querobabi, but it's definitely look at it. Another one that just really has nothing to do with trade, but it does help our community is the implementing initiatives that offer solutions for stormwater issues in ambos Nogales. A lot of people don't realize Nogales, Sonora, Mexico sits higher than Nogales, Arizona. What's that mean? All water flows to the U.S. So that's sewer water, that's rainwater, that's stormwater, that's all this water goes to the U.S. Well, part of our things is every monsoon season, which is in the end of June to the beginning of September, that's our monsoon season. All that rain comes into Arizona, and it's littered with trash. Unfortunately, I have to say it: bodies, cars. Because the streets in Mexico become rivers, like 4 or 5 feet of water, rivers rushing down some of the streets, and it's just because the geography and the geography of Nogales. So we have these issues. So there is a line that's called the IOI, the International Outflow Interceptor, which is a sewer line that comes from Nogales, Sonora, all the way to Rio Rico's water treatment facility, and Rio Rico treats it. And then we release it to the Santa Cruz River, and now we have fresh water flowing down the Santa Cruz River, which we haven't had in many years. So one of our efforts is modernize and embed it. We actually just were granted the ability, which is one of our big pushes, was to remove the ownership of the IOI and give it back to the federal government where it belongs. Before, the city of Nogales had to manage it, and they don't have the type of money to be able to manage the IOI. So we finally were successful and moved the IOI to IWBC, the International Water something. I don't have that in my head right now, but we moved it to the IWBC, and now they're responsible, which is at the end of the day, the federal government. So now whenever there's issues, breaks in the lines. The other thing to keep in mind is we are dealing, unfortunately, on an international border, and Mexico does have a challenge when it comes to drugs and drugs crossing the border. Well, a lot of the cartel members use the IOI to smuggle their drugs. Underneath the in the tunnels, let them float along. They'll figure out where it's at, crack a hole into the IOI, pull their drugs out, and just leave leaks all over the place. So part of it is there's a constant maintenance that needs to be done to prevent from these types of things happening. So part of the IOI is that we want to implement screens to stop all the drug bundles from entering the United States and catching them and doing all these different types of things. So that's one of them. The other one would be promote workforce development, which is it is what it is. It's workforce development. Our biggest project right now that we're working on, which is going to be roughly an $800 to $900 million project, is modernizing the DeConcini Port of Entry. The DeConcini Port of Entry is a port of entry that is beyond its times. It is way backdated.
Okay.
It's the only port of entry where the actual officers, CBP officers, are standing on the international line. Meaning there's times when they're just, it's funny because I see it because I cross every single day since I live in the US and work in Mexico. We have sentry lanes and they move barriers over. The CBP officers walk into Mexico, move the barriers, and walk back into the United States. That's how close they are to Mexico.
Okay.
That they actually step into Mexico. No one checks their passports. I don't know why, but they step into Mexico, move a barrier to open up 2 sentry lanes or close it to 1 sentry lane. Because Mexico doesn't do it. So the US has to illegally, but they're crossing into the Mexico, moving their thing and going back. That's how close they are. That is a huge security risk, especially after 9/11. Why? You go under a bunch of offices that are above you. Anybody, I mean, if you know terrorism, I mean, all they need to do is just load up an IED and drive it in there. And other than that, it's also a security risk for the officers as people rush the port of entry. There's no room to kind of move, get out of the way because you're right there at the international line.
Okay, so what's the project there?
That's what we're working on right now. So we just got granted the ability to start the feasibility study, the second phase of the feasibility study. This is the part of the process. It took us 9.5 years to get Mariposa. So we're not scared that our projects, like I mentioned, our projects are projects that nobody wants to do. Our projects are the projects that when you ask someone, they say no. Those are the projects we look for. Because not that we're scared. We're not scared of waiting 10 years to get a new port of entry. We understand what it takes. $800 million is a lot of money.
Yes, it is.
To get from anybody. So we understand these projects and we work on these projects and we do the things to be able to capture them. But DeConcini is one of them because of the risk. It's also our #1 port of entry where people cross. It's our personnel crossing port. Every community has ports of entries. Some, if you have multiple, some are more focused to walking, like the one in DeConcini, because that's where downtown Nogales is. Whereas Mariposa just puts you out in the boonies and you're in the middle of nowhere. So most people will walk through DeConcini. So we have hundreds of thousands of people crossing there every single year, and they walk across just to go to little shops and go back. So all of this is part of our modernization, is working to be able to better our community.
And Joshua, sorry for interrupting. Before we close this conversation, is there something else that would be important for you to tell the audience about what's going on with the Port Authority?
The biggest thing to let you guys know is the Port Authority is in a transition. I just took over, so I'm starting a transition for the last past chair, which was Jaime Chamberlain. Great mentor. I'm honored to serve the Port Authority after him. He showed me a lot and taught me a lot. But we are going into a transition of different projects and different perspectives of what the Port Authority does. We're going to start possibly putting on some kind of events where we might have different panels and different boards to talk about different things, more going away from just us focusing on just our projects and our priorities, but also going into the other areas, promoting our region, promoting workforce development. And so start bringing in organizations and start talking to them, bring in the banking sector, tell us what's going on in the banking world. Is everything looking okay? Where's interest rates going? Bring in, say, customs brokers and tell us, hey, what laws do you see changing in international trade? And then bring in maybe other professionals like the electrical company, TEP, and the mining cluster. Let us know what's going on in the world. What are we seeing with EV trucks and batteries? So these are types of events that we're going to start putting on and start changing a little bit of the things that we're doing, as well as just promoting our community. So let me see. The biggest thing is promoting the importance of international trade, promoting the successes of CBP and working to provide them the staffing that they need. It's unfortunate right now. It's probably our biggest push is working the staffing model for CBP. It's really unfortunate that we have CBP officers working 12, 13-hour days for weeks on end because of overtime, because of how understaffed they are and how overworked they are.
Okay.
So it is unfortunate. So we are working on these types of projects. One of the biggest things, for example, if you have any friends that work in Border Patrol, I know a few of them, but the process to get hired is a pain.
Oh,
I've heard experiences from the day they submitted an application that I want to go work for Border Patrol or CBP to the day that they get an offer letter could be over a year.
oh,
Over
wow.
1 year to get an offer letter, because you put in your application, then you have to go through an interview and blah blah blah. Over a year. Everybody's going to start a new career. If I can't get a job in a year, I'm going to go start working somewhere else.
Yeah.
You get your offer letter saying, "Hey, do you want to work for Border Patrol? You can get paid $50,000 a year." And you're like, I'm working here and I'm getting 70 or 60. No, I'm good. I don't want to do that. As much as I really wanted to do it, I don't want to do it anymore.
Okay.
So that's part of what we're working on, is working with our congressmen and our senators to tell them, you guys need to update this.
Okay.
We want you guys to implement bonuses for local hires. We want you to speedline it. We want you to do things similar to the way the military does, which I have experience in. So there's a lot of those type of things.
I admire that a lot of, well, I mean, not a lot. Your main focus is on long term.
Yes.
And that can be hard for a lot of people to focus on the long-term project that it will benefit not just Arizona, but or Nogales or Sonora, but also both countries, Mexico and the United States. So I respect you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, at the end of the day, Mexico's our #1 trading partner. We need to protect them. We need to take care of them, and we need to work with them as they need to work with us. So there's a lot of things, and every project I have goes cross-border. It's an international issue. Anything that happens in our community is a federal issue, just to keep in mind. That's what makes any border community unique. Every issue on any border community, talking about El Paso, talking about Douglas, San Luis, Otay Mesa, California, Hidalgo, Laredo, all of these issues, everything that happens in that community is a federal issue. Why? It's either going to have to do something with the border, international trade, drugs, smuggling, migrants. It's anything you have. Nogales, if you come here to Nogales, you'll see more law enforcement than you'll ever see in your life. We have DEA, we have ICE, we have DHS, we have CBP, we have Border Patrol, we have FBI, we have DEA. I mentioned DEA. We have our police, we have our sheriffs. I mean, we have everybody you can think of. You can't go anywhere and not see a firearm on someone's hip with a badge on them. It is. And for us, we love it. I mean, you can't be any safer in a community than having that much law enforcement, and they're not bothering. It's just, this is where they live, and this is what
it's just doing their job. They're not bothering.
Just doing their jobs. And I mean, I can't tell you how many people I see and no one's doing. I mean, everybody here, and that's the other thing. The one thing, sorry, I know I keep having one thing. I guess the one thing I want to mention is to give you the context, I sit on Index Nogales board. I'm the chairman of the scholarship program that we do. And I run a golf tournament every year, and the golf tournament is to raise funds for scholarships on both sides of the border. So we'll go to Nogales and Rio Rico High School and issue out about $20,000 to $30,000 in scholarships, and then we go to Nogales, Sonora, and we issue about 50 to there's $1 million pesos is what we gave out on scholarships this last year to students. That's pretty much in Mexico covers an entire semester to at least a year worth of education. And in the United States, it at least helps them with some of their expenses. But when I do my speech in Nogales, Sonora, I don't do it as much because it's a little bit more challenging just because of the way our immigration laws are. However, when I go to Nogales, Arizona, and Rio Rico high schools, and I talk to them, I tell every single kid, and I write them a letter and say, please do not leave this community and forget about it. There's so many people outside of our community, and it's funny, just going to Tucson, 61 miles away, they have a completely different perspective of what the border is than us who live here. The border is so important, and it is I already used the word melting pot, but it is a melting pot of cultures. You have people, my wife, for example, goes into Mexico at least once or twice a week, get her nails done, get her eyelashes done, get her hair done. And then we have people from Mexico that go into Arizona and they go and buy their groceries, go get gasoline, go do different things. And you have families that are split. You have family like, oh, my grandma, my grandpa live in Nogales, Sonora. My parents and I, we live in Nogales, Arizona. And we go over there and we spend time with them. And you go over and you go back and forth. If my wife and I want to go get dinner, we'll sometimes go into Mexico and go get dinner. It's a relationship that you will not find anywhere else but on an international border. I would assume Canada would say the same exact thing that I'm saying, that having this relationship is unlike anything else that anybody else will have, and to cherish it and to advocate anywhere they go. I tell these kids, advocate for your border community. Tell them that we are not filled with cartel members. We are not filled with drugs and tunnels. There isn't shootings every single day. People aren't dying. It's not what people see on the news. So that's what I ask. And that would be the last thing I would want to leave off here is I would ask for anybody to come to the border. And if I would be more than happy to give tours to any organization, any group of people to our ports of entry, give you tours of our ports of entry with CBP. And I'll be more than happy to help them. But the relationship that we have here in a community with Nogales, Sonora, and that's why we call it Ambos Nogales, both Nogaleses, because we're Ambos Nogales, we're the same community divided by a wall. That's what we are. If there was no wall there, I promise you, you wouldn't be seeing any difference in what we see now. The wall is just an obstacle for us to get to where we need to get to.
Yeah,
that's all it is. This community, and when I say this community, I'm talking about both sides of the border, is unlike anywhere else you can go to. You can't go to Tucson. It's not like going from South Phoenix to North Phoenix. It's not like that. It's like going from literally one country to another country. But, oh, I'm going to go see my tia. Oh, where's your tia? Oh, she's living in Rio Rico. Oh, I'm going to go visit my my cousin. Where are your cousins at? Oh, they live in Nogales, Sonora. And it's like everybody knows each other. Everyone talks to each other. And because, yeah, we are a small community, but that's the way the relationship works on the border. It's Nogales, Sonora needs Nogales, Arizona, just as much Nogales, Arizona needs Nogales, Sonora. It's this, other than the manufacturing and the produce industry with trade, the trade that happens between going buying medication. My teeth, I have a hole in my tooth because I'm in the process of getting my teeth done in Mexico.
Okay.
I'm in the US, I'm doing it in Mexico. It's better dentists, or not better dentists, but there's a lot more options to dentists. The cost is so much cheaper.
Of course.
But this is something that you can't get anywhere else but on the border. So I open Nogales and Santa Cruz County to doors open to wide open to anybody that's listening to this. If you guys would love to come and get tours and understand it, we would love to work something together. I'm originally, or I am a Cuban descent. My mom was born in Cuba. I have no Mexican in me. My wife is Mexican. Her family comes from Mexicali, and my kids were born in this community. I'm originally from California, but my kids are from this community, so I'm from this community. I eat in this community. I live in this community, so I love this community, and I care about this community, and I
can tell.
do not want to see the negative press on anywhere along the border. Because Mexico is so much more better than drugs and cartels and migrants.
Of course. Well, Joshua, thank you for this. It's been
thank you, sir. It was a little bit longer than planned, but hey, you got a lot of material to work with.
But it was a rich conversation.
It was.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Welcome. And hopefully next Tuesday we'll link up or something.
Yeah, sure.